Hi, John.
Hello, Alex.
Do you know what I hate?
What do you hate?
Mercury retrograde.
Oh, why do you hate Mercury, particularly when it's in retrograde?
Well, that's what people that have a vague understanding of astrology say every time something like a bummer happens. And I figured, what's more of an astrology bummer than the events of Zodiac?
Yeah, I love astrology bummer cinema.
Yes, it's my favorite. It's like the astrologer and this movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Was the astrologer on the main feed or is that a Patreon?
That's a good question. I think that was maybe a Patreon.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, if you're not on the Patreon, sign up because you can listen to us Wada Die talking about Rebel Moon Part 2 and The Astrologer.
Well, The Astrologer is good.
A year ago.
Rebel Moon Part 2
yeah,
is
The Astrologer
not good.
was good. Yeah. Rebel Moon Part 2 was garbage. Zodiac, it's a movie I've never seen before.
Really?
Yeah. I thought I had. I don't know what I got it confused with, but I had not. I think I got it confused with that Son of Sam movie.
Oh, Summer of Sam.
Yeah.
I have not seen that one.
I don't know why they confuse like those two killers like kind of overlap in my brain.
I could see that. I could see that getting that sort of confused if you're not too familiar with either one.
But overall, I don't want to start with like a full review, but this is a rare example, and they don't come up that often, where it reaches a cliff before the last 30 minutes. Like this, like watching it, I'm like, this might be one of my favorite movies ever. Like, I love this. And then, like, I don't know, maybe like the last half hour, I was like, is this movie still going? And like, I don't fucking care anymore. Like, I just like, oh my God, like, cause like, especially when they don't resolve anything, I don't enjoy this.
That's the point.
No, I know it's the point, but like, I wish that was the point in a movie that was 2 hours, not 2.5.
Oh, see, I think this is unlike Rebel Moon, which we get into in that episode. Like the time passing in this movie is such a huge element of it, and there's a thing that happens every year in Portland, the Time-Based Arts Festival, and I've never understood it. I've asked people what it means, and they've told me because everything to me is time-based art, like film in particular. It's time. You're watching time happen. But like this really, I think that applies to like, this is all this, large part of this is the passage of time and what's knowable and unknowable and all that. And I think the last 30 minutes to me, that's great. Cause that's like watching it again. This is the first time I've seen it in probably 5 years. I saw it when it came out. I went to like a super late night screening of it. And because it was so late, I fell asleep when they first interview Arthur Lee Allen. I missed that whole scene.
Oh, that's not an important part.
Yeah, not a big deal at all. And then I watched it again later, but like something about watching it this time, it hit me. Like I didn't like dislike it before, but I got obsessed with this movie. And yeah, I really like it. And the last 30 minutes, how it is sort of like you're just following Graysmith down into this rabbit hole, and like there's no answers. I kind of like that.
So I like that. I just thought the movie was too long for that to be the payoff. Pacing wise, I think it just kind of peaked a little early to pay off that kind of thing. Because I do like, I almost like, I wish his going a little crazy, like his wife leaving him, I wish was 25 minutes earlier in the film. Like, just chop out 25 minutes earlier. Even though I love that the first whole bunch of the movie, I just think after a while, it's like, it's not a 2.5 hour movie for me. But I absolutely adored the beginning. This is one of the rare, I don't know Robert Downey Jr. as a serious actor that well. I think like Oppenheimer and this might be the only serious RDJ I've ever seen. I mean, I'm sure there's others here and there, but like for the most part, this is it. And like, he's really good in this. Like I like his kind of, RDJ has like recognizable kind of mannerisms that he uses in acting, but like it didn't distract me enough. Like I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is Tony Stark, but like it feels like him.
No, he has this ability to make like he's a very sort of magnetic person. Like this character that is in large part a piece of shit, you still get why like Robert Graysmith's kind of, you know, obsessed with him and kind of, you know, like wants to be his friend and is interested in him. He's fascinating to watch, and even when he's being awful, he's still fun. This was his last, like, I think, big role before Iron Man, before becoming
it's got to be
Mr. Marvel.
time-wise. Yeah. Which is interesting because, like, the whole narrative of Robert Downey Jr. getting Iron Man was no one would trust me with a role, and you know, I was in the dumps after my whole drug thing, where it's like, dude, you're like second, third lead in a David Fincher movie. Like,
yeah,
I mean, like David Fincher is some like indie unknown guy.
Yeah, you had started to come back. Like, what was it like? I mean, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang wasn't a huge hit, but he was in that. I'm trying to see what else was right before then.
Back to School.
Oh, he was in A Scanner Darkly. He was getting some raves off of that because he's a lot of fun in that. But yeah, I mean, obviously he was doing well enough that, you know, Marvel probably was. I mean, obviously Marvel didn't start off being the behemoth that it was, but that they weren't just like, hey, here's a random guy, let's grab him. But anyway, yes, he's really, really good in this, particularly like his whole journey. And one of the things I like about this movie is that you are still on the outside for so much of it. That like, it doesn't seem like it seems like the obsession with Zodiac did something to Paul Avery, to Robert Downey Jr.'s Paul Avery, but it's not clear if that was it. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like he had a lot of other issues going on. Like, he was already like heavy into drugs and drinking, like as this thing was kicking off. And so it's sort of is the obsession that's destroying him, or is it just his own shit? You know, that the obsession is feeding into.
The combo platter.
Yeah. It pulls its punches when it needs to. Like, it's subtle about some things and very unsubtle about other things. And in a very good way.
One of my favorite scenes in this, and it's primarily Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. It's, you know, single word, where Gyllenhaal comes up and he's like, hey man, are you doing all right? And Robert Downey Jr. is like, no. Like, but he says it so matter-of-factly, just like, oh, I'm telling you a factual statement here. But there's not really a lot of emotion behind the no, which like makes it worse. Like, it was really strong.
Well, the same thing. Like, I love when they're having the interaction, when he's kind of first getting to know Gyllenhaal, and they have the Aqua Velva, all the Aqua Velva drinks. And Gyllenhaal's like laying out.
Wait, I thought Aqua Velva was a cologne.
It is, but that's also the blue drink that.
I don't think I clocked that. Sorry, that threw me off.
But he, when Jake Gyllenhaal is describing the cipher to him, and he's like, "What's the most common double letter consonant?" And and the letter L, and Robert Downey Jr.'s like, the letter L, like he thought of it, and just at that little moment, I love that.
Yeah, the only performance that threw me off, and it's not the performance, it's the power social nature of podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Ruffalo, his name is Pritchard. What's his name?
Toschi.
Wow, I was even close. His wife is June Diane Raphael from How Did This Get Made?
Oh,
and I've been listening to that show for like 14 years or
That's
something.
Funny.
Like,
I had no idea.
And it's not. I'm sure she did a fine job, but I can't. The parasocial thing where it's like, oh, that's my friend from the podcast. Like that's she's married to Paul Scheer. Like I know her personally. Obviously, I don't. I'm being somewhat facetious.
Imagine if Rich from Red Letter Media was just in this movie. Then you're like, that's Rich. Like, I can't get past that.
And it threw because the first scene she's in, I didn't pick up on it. And then the next one, I'm like, oh shit, that's June. Oh fuck. And then I'm like, oh, I'm done. Yeah.
I love the
one I didn't pick up. Sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say the one that I didn't, and this is such an Alexx moment of, I host a movie podcast and this is the kind of thing I miss. I had no idea that was Chloe Savini the entire movie.
Oh, really? Oh, funny.
Because I was like, she looks so much like one of the Brady girls. That's all I was thinking of.
It was very kind of Jan.
And then I was like looking through the thing. I'm like, that's Chloe Savini. Holy shit. I picked up the podcast lady and Miss Chloe Savini.
A medium you don't even see her
Oscar
face.
Winner or nominee.
But the I like the little. There's all these like little through lines, like with him and his wife, and just constantly getting interrupted with the phone calls and him interacting with the phone, or even Toschi like paying for the meal at the end is sort of like a big deal, but it's handled very subtly. But I just like all those storylines that carry through this whole thing.
One of the interesting things, so Mark Ruffalo, again, Marvel alum, I don't think I've quite put it together until watching this, because I haven't seen a lot of his younger stuff. It's like he's one of those guys that, like, he turned at about 32, he turned 45, and
Right.
has stood that way for, like, he's got that, who's that old man from Death? He's got like a Charles Bronson thing where it's just like, you just picked an age and just stopped there for about 30
Right.
years.
Yeah,
because I
remember
saw him like last year and he looks the same.
Yeah, there was some movie, The Kids Are All Right, with him and Annette Bening. And part of the whole thing was like, oh man, it's an indie thing. It's like, man, what a hunk this guy is. What a hunk. And I saw it. It's fine. You know, whatever. It's an indie thing. And then he's just a good actor. Like, if you've not seen Foxcatcher, I recommend that. Both just for Steve Carell's performance in that is great. Channing Tatum is always great. But like, Mark Ruffalo has this very physical performance that I've not really seen him do since that I really enjoyed. And I really like him as Toschi in this as well. Just his again, like a lot of little things. Like when the two cops show up and are talking to him about they might have seen the Zodiac.
That scene's so good.
The call came out that it was a black guy. First, like, yeah, but they fixed that. Like that would solve anything. You know what I mean? Like these little moments of just the frustration of fighting against the systems. Because like the overall the view of this movie is very, I think you have a lot of like these people sort of fighting against the systems that exist. But it's also like not in this like very heavy-handed way. It's like there's still good people trying to do this. But like one of my favorite scenes that happens about 40 minutes into the movie is when Anthony Edwards, who's also very good in this, is like calling to get information. He calls Vallejo, and then Vallejo has to call this guy, whatever. And how come you didn't listen on the handwriting? And it's a great scene about how frustrating that sort of the actual procedure of being a cop is. But the fact that all those roles are staffed by like that guy actors.
There were so many that guy actors.
The fact that's like Elias Koteas, I'm like, oh my god, it's Elias Koteas, that guy's great. And then it's Donald Logue, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's just a cornucopia of that guys.
And also John Carroll Lynch to me is a that guy actor.
Yes.
Because I know him that's Drew Carey's brother from the Drew Carey show. I know he's in like Fargo or whatever, but like I know him from that, where it's like, that kid, holy shit, it's Drew Carey's brother. Because also Donald Logue I know him from that one season show he was on.
Terriers.
No. Like he was on a sitcom before he was big, called
Grounded
like,
for
Detention
Life.
Times. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I knew it wasn't called Detention Times. I was just trying to say something close enough.
But
just to be fair, my brain is disintegrating. I was trying to lob words you might recognize so you would get them.
And it worked. But watch
I'm
Terriers.
just defending myself to the audience.
If you get a chance, watch Terriers. If that's streaming anywhere, it's really good. Again, like a single season thing, kind of a sort of detective show. Really good stuff. But I remember him back when MTV when he was like the cab driver on MTV
that's
spots.
Right. Yeah.
And he's in Blade. But anyway, just a lot of great cast in this.
So Anthony Edwards, I just want to it's annoying because I'm sure he acted well. I could not keep my eyes off that bad hairpiece.
Oh yeah.
Really, like we were talking about Rebel Moon 2, where the guy's got the bad beard. His hair was so fucking distracting for me because I'm like kind of thinning a little bit at my age. Mm-hmm. I'm a cool 27-year-old, but I'm thinning early, I guess.
Right.
But I just
too much testosterone.
All I was doing was staring at his fucking hair. It's like, oh, that's so bad. Like,
I was too busy. I actually was very taken by him, and was like, oh, I actually kind of like. I forgot how much I like this guy. I just haven't seen him in anything for a long time.
I don't think I've ever really liked him in anything, to be honest. I mean, I guess. No, I never really liked him in anything.
I remember there was a movie I saw. I doubt it holds up, but there was like a movie called Hometown Boy Makes Good that he was in that I really enjoyed.
What a fucking terrible movie title, though.
With him and Grace Zabriskie. Oh my gosh, Chris Mulkey. All these Twin Peaks people. Harry Shearer. Anyway, I don't remember them, but yeah, I doubt the movie's good. But I just remember him in that, and ever since then, I've liked him. There was also he was obviously his big thing was ER, and I remember when ER was all huge that first season. There's an episode where like he can't save a baby or something like that, and my family was on vacation in Hawaii, but we're gonna watch that show. It's the big hit show, and that he loses the baby and it cuts to commercial, and it's like a bumper for the news that's on next. And I think maybe someone just didn't tell the news guy they were on, but he's just sitting there, just looking devastated.
Oh, really?
In silence.
Wow.
And then it cuts away and goes to the next commercial. So he just, it got him so bad.
Now I know Anthony Evers as the Darth Vader rapist is his most famous role.
Yeah, I've never seen all that movie. Like I've seen bits of it, but never the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's probably, we actually do have a younger audience. So there was a movie called Revenge of the Nerds in the 80s. And in the 80s, some stuff happened in movies that would not go over well. And in this movie, he dresses up as Darth Vader and pretends to be this woman's boyfriend and has sex with her.
Yep.
Because that was a comedy in the 80s.
And that was okay to do in the 80s.
Yes. But speaking of Cox, Brian Cox is in this movie, and Brian Cox is one of those guys I forget I like every single time, and then he's on screen. It's like I feel safe. You're gonna do a good job around me.
He's so good. I mean, even just like his, he does pompous bullshit very well. In fact, I just recently was rewatching Manhunter, and his Hannibal Lecter in that is so chilling and great. And obviously, like Anthony, I almost called him Anthony Edwards. Anthony Hopkins, T Hops is the guy, but Brian Cox's performance is so fantastic. He's good at everything.
I forgot that he was Lecter, and Jesus, I haven't seen that movie in a really long time.
Oh, it's good. It's still really good.
Elias Koteas is not that other guy. Importantly, Christopher Maloney.
He's not Christopher Maloney. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never got they're the same human for me.
I get it.
Until you said Elias Koteas, it took me a second. Going, who the fuck is that? Oh yeah, Christopher Maloney.
He's Casey Jones on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Again, you could have said that was Christopher Maloney. They're the same man to me.
It's not.
Who was the one in Wet Hot American Summer?
That is Christopher Maloney.
Yeah, I was going to guess that was Elias Koteas.
Yeah, no.
Who was the one that was on the cop show? Is that Elias Koteas?
Are you talking about Law and Order?
Yeah.
No, that was Christopher Maloney.
Okay.
I want to say Elias Koteas was on a different cop show.
Maybe that's it, because I thought this was like a not stunt casting, but I thought maybe he just looks like a cop. That's the thing.
No, I did have that thought when they go to, when Paul Avery, because at a certain point in the case, Robert Downey Jr.'s character goes and meets someone. I think in Riverside. I don't know my California geography, but like he's got a hot tip that connects Zodiac to an earlier murder, and then he gets on TV.
Riverside.
Yeah, and he screws over the cops in doing so. And when they go to talk to the Riverside PD, I thought that guy was probably some sort of stunt casting. I have no idea who he is, but
no, he's got one of those faces. Yeah.
But I again like that kind of element of these things that are out of your control in trying to solve this case, or even towards the end when he's talking to Jake Gyllenhaal about like Jake Gyllenhaal has all these theories. He's like, you can't convict him on any of this. Like this is all circumstantial. Yeah. This all this all works out. Absolutely. Not how it all works, dude. And that it's just that renders it all meaningless, and it's kind of great.
One of the things I found like really effective in this is how little time we spend with Zodiac. That like you're really kind of in the mindset of the people that were alive at the time of like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like this is such a vague threat. Like we don't really know the pattern. Like maybe he's mad at women. I guess I don't fucking know. And he's killing people all over the goddamn place, and like fake Zodiacs are showing up.
Yeah, like that. Because again, like this sort of like being on the outside. Because even there's a lot of these big moments that you're kind of seeing through the eyes of the other characters. That it's not, it's not this, you're not sort of experiencing it happening. At the same time, when it does, when you're at those moments, like with the woman in the car, or with like the couple at the lake, or that whole opening scene, like he's very good in this movie about like not sensationalizing the violence, but you still like feel really awful and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's like almost, but it's done like particularly the couple at the lake. It's almost sort of like journalistic, more kind of like matter of fact. This is what happened, but it's still tense and scary. Whereas the opening scene is a lot more, and I think by design is a lot more disquieting and upsetting. Like nothing feels right from as soon as that kid gets in the car. Everything just feels weird.
Well, that opening scene, I thought they were doing a specific call to this is a horror trope scene to set up what this movie isn't going to be. Because hey, look, I'm a woman that's cheating on her husband, and we're alone, and like that's how every single teenager gets murdered in one of those movies from the 80s.
Right.
And like doing like kind of subverting that, I at least that was on my mind, because also it leads to like the murder is so much more brutal than you would see in those movies in like a realistic way. You're like, oh shit, now I get it a little bit.
But I think it also functions in this way of being like there are things about these characters you're just not going to know. Like, and it sort of preps you for that like the guy is wearing 3 shirts on the 4th of July, which apparently is a real fact. Like David Fincher, did all the research on this. And in fact, I think they had to reshoot a couple of scenes or something like that because it wasn't actually in the right place or something, but just like really make sure the details of this shit is correct. But it's also that like, you don't know, why is he wearing that? What is actually their relationship? It seems like maybe something's going to happen. Doesn't matter. Like, you're never let in on it. And that's just, it like a little bit like Under the Silver Lake, where it's like, some mysteries are just not for you to know. Like, you have to just deal with that.
The scariest scene in this movie, just on the murder stuff that like makes you uncomfortable, that's fucking terrifying when he tricks that lady into having her wheel fall off.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're going to die tonight. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw your fucking baby out of the window. It's like, oh, that is goddamn. That is a chilling scene.
Yeah. That's terrifying. I was a little bit taken out of it by realizing that was Ione Skye.
I didn't pick that up.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, but this isn't my first time watching it. So whatever. It's still a very effective and very scary scene. But like, that's Ione Skye. And I was like, oh my God, that's Ione Skye. I haven't thought about that person in a long time. I remember her from Say Anything. I know she's been in a couple other movies, and I looked her up. She's the daughter of Donovan, the guy that sings Hurdy-Gurdy Man.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So like, what a weird connection. Because that use of that song in this movie is fantastic. Very, very upsetting.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. I kind of forgot that was in the movie. Oh, that's okay. How interesting.
Yeah.
I was trying to
but it is,
of her, but there's every single person in the world that's in this movie, and I couldn't find her.
Right. Well, it's also that like those,
oh, there she is.
They did it like they cast 3 different people for like each of the Zodiac killings that we see. There's different people playing the Zodiac. They had different voices happening. They kind of like edit them so it doesn't sound like John Carroll Lynch, but sort of sounds like John Carroll Lynch.
Yeah.
And I thought that was extremely effective. Like that call at the beginning after that first kill, when he's on the phone, he's like, goodbye. Chills up my spine. Awful.
Yes. That works really well. And I know David Fincher wasn't thinking about future X-Ray on Amazon Prime, but I ended up watching this on Amazon Prime because my Paramount Plus had run out, or whatever the fuck this was streaming on. And the anytime the scene is on, everybody's referred to as Zodiac 1, Zodiac 2, Zodiac 3, Zodiac 4. And I was like, oh, that's so great. Because the second Drew Carey's brother shows up, like, oh yeah, that's obviously him. But like, maybe not obviously, but
right.
You feel like, yeah, this is probably the guy. But the fact that like the X-ray thing just said Zodiac 1, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's like, because it's often spoiled in movies like this, but in that case, it preserves.
Yeah, but like there's people that are still like, no, it totally wasn't Arthur Lee Allen. It was this other guy. There was a whole weird thing where like there's some like Facebook posts of like this very old man, and then people are like, hey, this is so-and-so. He's a Zodiac killer. That like he might have actually been the Zodiac killer. I don't remember that completely about that. But yeah, there are people that that discount Arthur Lee Allen. I think have problems with Gray Smith's book. They just recently solved the final, or like one of the harder ciphers that Zodiac sent out, which is like you can look it up online. There's like YouTube videos about how they did it, and like the FBI kind of confirmed it. And it's real weird because it is like, so you have like this grid of symbols. And part of the whole thing is like you have to read them from like upper left to lower right, starting in a certain place, and then there's certain parts you like leave out. So there's a fair amount of guesswork that was done on it using computers, but some of it's also just like that this is the best that we can come up with. And we think what happened here is that because the first one was solved, he kind of went overboard and kind of stumbled into making a very difficult cipher.
Oh, that's
interesting.
Like,
yeah, that's like this isn't necessarily, we can't say like, oh, what a stroke of genius, because it just seems like he overcomplicated it for no good. Like no one was ever supposed to solve this.
Yeah,
like I could send you a cipher that I've just made up that like has no relation to anything ever except just what's in my head, And how would anyone ever solve that? It's like, well, if you move the second letter 7 spaces down, and then you look to this cipher that I have, or this other chart that I have in my room that no one else has seen, that's unrelated to anything. I'm not a genius. I just made a piece of shit cipher.
Yeah, it's like a book cipher too, where it's like, well, if you don't know what book the cipher's based on, you're done. There's nothing that can be done about this.
Right.
It's interesting at the end where they say that they found some evidence and it's not Lee's DNA, or they found partial DNA or whatever. But even if it's not, that guy was obviously a fucking creepo. So like I'm almost satisfied, because like there's another thing that like really hit home for me is, and it's not like the movie really hangs a hat on this, but when Mark Ruffalo is like, dude, do you know how many people are murdered every year?
Yeah.
It's like 200 plus and whatever. Like, this guy killed 5 people or whatever over the course of whatever years. Like, this isn't a big deal. It's not like it isn't a big deal, but like, resources shouldn't be put this way. You know? And it's really kind of a thing of like, and it's interesting how it's like, non-sexually sexy, it's like this idea of like the Zodiac, and it's like got a cool name or whatever, but like really like, he killed what, 6 people, 7 people or whatever. Like, I'm not saying that's like good or not terrible, but like the fact that's a fucking traffic accident. Like, that's not, the fact that like it ruined how many poor fucking Jake Gyllenhaal, like his entire life got obsessed with it. And for what, he didn't kill that school bus full of kids.
Right. Yeah. It is just this, like, that you have to know that it's like you somehow have some secret knowledge that no one else does. And that kind of pursuit of it. And that, I like that, like, Toschi eventually, like, the job forces him out of it, force him out of this, because, there's all this stuff about, they think maybe he's trying to drum up publicity for himself. But it's also just, like you said, that there's all these other murders. He's like, I can't spend any more time on this. Like, this sucks. Like, this was a crazy thing, but I can't deal with this anymore. Whereas Graysmith doesn't have that. But I also like earlier how Anthony Edwards is like, I'm done. Like, he sees his limit, and he's like, this is hurting me. I got to get out of this. Whereas Graysmith just can't. Graysmith, and it's so funny because at the beginning of the movie, Graysmith is constantly trying to, like, particularly with his kids, like, oh no, don't look at this news report about it. Hide, turn this off because my kid's watching it. And by the end, like, he can't even talk to his wife at dinner. He's got to look at the TV, and then he's going down to the creepiest basement in existence, and he's totally lost.
I loved that, like, kind of whatever the fuck was going on there, where he meets the organist. Yeah, where he's that's
Roger Rabbit.
Oh, that's him? Fleischer or whatever his name is?
That's Charles Fleischer.
Yeah, Charles Fleischer.
It's Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. That's funny. Now that you say that, I do kind of recognize his face.
Yeah.
He's got that, like, kind of young Brad Dourif face. Like when he was a Billy whatever from Cuckoo's Nest.
Right. I can see that. Yeah.
I don't even know if that's his name in Cuckoo's Nest, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene was creepy as shit, and like I don't really know what to take of it, because like that guy was obviously, there were some fucking weird things going on, or because we're seeing it through Gyllenhaal. What's the character's name? I can't remember.
Graysmith, Robert Graysmith.
Graysmith. Yeah, Robert I had. Just Graysmith will not stick in my head.
Yeah.
Whether because we're seeing it through his eyes, that's why we're like, oh, this is obviously, oh, you got a basement. Where it's like, that's not really a revelation,
Yeah, but I mean, I think some of it is just that the fact that he was like, oh, well, I already learned that you might be the Zodiac killer because of the handwriting thing that I thought was this other guy, and it turns out it's your handwriting. And then you're like, you want to see my basement? And Robert Grace was like, oh, absolutely, let's do that, because you just want that knowledge more than you're concerned about yourself.
So I don't know anything about this stuff, but like, it sounds like handwriting analysis is just bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's the movie kind of like comes down on it. I'm not so sure about that, because there are certain things that undercut that, like when they have their handwriting guy like pulled handwriting samples from a carved desk, and the guy's like, how do you pull handwriting samples from an etching? Then there's the one guy that's Philip Baker Hall, again, great, that guy actor. I love the scene when he's first doing the handwriting analysis, and Toschi won't shut up. He's like, if you speak again, I'm going to kick you out. He's like, sorry. He's like, that counts as speaking.
Yeah,
and
that was
just
fun.
Like pouts. But how, like, he's the guy, then you find out later, it's like, oh no, he's a huge drunk. That might not work. I don't know. Yeah. And then the other guy, the Mr. Show guy, John Ennis, is another handwriting expert. So I don't know, but it seems like it's not a settled science. I don't know. There's also I've heard stories that apocryphal or not, that he would, in making that, like, he would basically use an overhead projection of the letters to like trace over them so they couldn't tell the handwriting or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I have not read the full book. When I was in my serial killer phase in college and shortly afterwards, I never really glommed on to Zodiac. So I honestly don't know too much about the case outside of this movie and a couple other things.
So, Graysmith, all these people are based on real people, is what I understand. So Graysmith, he lived for a while.
Yes. Yeah.
Did he live?
In fact, I think he was like on the movie.
Okay, that's kind of the question. How obsessed do you think he got with 9/11 truth? Because that guy, he's got the brain for going full QAnon. I think he was probably dead before QAnon, but like that's full QAnon brain.
Yeah, no, he as far as I can tell, he's not dead. He's still alive. So. Oh
shit! Oh yeah, I wonder if he might be Q. We may have solved it.
Yeah, if you look up the on Wikipedia, one of the first things is, in recent years, Graysmith has faced scrutiny from online sleuths who have called various aspects of his book fraudulent and inaccurate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, but it links to a blog about it, so who knows? I didn't look that far into it. But
the blog's on Medium, so it gives it an air of being real.
Right, but it also doesn't really, for the purpose of this movie, it doesn't matter, because I think part of the point of the movie is that you don't know, that you're just but yeah, so like and apparently, as I said, like, because David Fincher is a very obsessive guy, that this was sort of a perfect movie for him. And I forget frequently that he did Seven, that was kind of his big thing.
That's the one I associate most with him, is Seven.
Yeah, see, I kind of forgotten, but with so many other movies that have come out, that because Seven seems so much more like rough and visceral than what I think about when I think about his movies.
What else has Fincher done? What are we talking about here?
So you got Alien 3. You got
best
Seven.
Ever.
You got The Game. This one, Gone Girl. That recent The Killer with Michael Fassbender. The girl with the doggone tattoo. I'm sure there's other ones.
Yeah. I think I've seen quite a few of his movies. I just kind of forget which one it is. Yeah, I think of him as Seven. Who did Fight Club? Was that him?
Oh, that was him. Yeah. That's what I was forgetting. Fight Club, yeah. Which is one of those that, like, I still think it's a good movie, but it's like people have made that movie dumb.
Yeah, that movie has gone nearly, not as bad as Lebowski, but like near that level of like the fans ruin it for me.
Yeah. Totally understand. Yeah, I probably told the story before. There was a dude I went to college with that was obsessed with Fight Club and working out and was like, yeah, self-improvement is masturbation. It's like, you just completely misunderstood what that means.
Yeah, I love when people do that. It's really fun. Yeah. It's like a puppy getting confused by a reflection.
Yeah. Oh, The Social Network. He did The Social Network too, which is
that's right. Yeah. Oh, you know the thing I wanted to ask you about? So there's fake Zodiacs calling in and yada yada. When the one on the beach by the lake, that was actually him though, right?
That was a Zodiac.
Because him being in a fucking robe with the logo on it was kind of stupid. Like it looked staged kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I mean it's funny also to think about like what we're used to now and like what we kind of expect from things. Like, that's a guy in a hood shows up like with a logo in the 60s. It'd be like, early 70s. What the fuck? But now you'd be like, what are you cosplaying as? What is this?
Yeah.
Same thing where I've been listening to this podcast called Weird Little Guys, all about these like different crazy, wild, right-wing people that, murderers or whatever. Like, there was some guy that was like sending in bomb threats because they stopped doing a Civil War reenactment that he liked. And just, so there's certain elements of that, because it's like, well, yeah, this is kind of funny and silly, and like, but these are also like dangerous people in some regards. Like, there's one guy that got arrested. I think he was like maybe one of the Charlottesville people. I don't remember. Like, he got arrested like when he was, at the time he was like arguing on a sex real doll forum or something like that. Like, just weird shit. It's like when they go to his house, when they go to Arthur Lee Allen's house, and he's got like all the porno and like a gross, shitty dildo. You're like, oh, there's a lot going on up there, man.
You know what made me think about it in this movie too is how fucking easy it would be to be a murderer in the 60s and 70s. Like cops had no fucking, they were just stumbling around like a bunch of idiots. Like if you had the remotest bit of chill, like wore gloves, that's about it. Like you could just get away with murdering the shit out of anything, which I'm not saying I'm going to start, but like if I had a time machine, I'm just saying, some shit's going to go down.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of it. Part of this whole thing too, is that, this is a new feature for people. Like they've not experienced anything like this before. And that's kind of like a realization that like someone is capable of something like this, even though there have been a number of awful, horrible murderers that have happened up until, before this point, and, but didn't have that same kind of like capturing the zeitgeist or writing into the newspapers or whatever. That kind of made people go, oh, people are capable of this. That we have this sort of image of, that period of time being like America becoming disillusioned. America's always been awful, depending on where you're looking at. If people were, it's not like civil rights just became an issue in the 1960s or anything like that. But it's like that sort of perfect suburban ideal that was perhaps in the post-war era started to really kind of, that shine started to fade. And I think this was a huge part of that as well. Or at least not a huge part of it, but that was a sign of that.
Well, also the kind of media awareness of it. Cause like, H.H. Holmes and all this, there's been fucking weirdos the whole way, but like,
oh yeah. Albert Fish, awful.
Yeah.
Ed Gein.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I'm just, as somebody with erectile dysfunction, I feel like Ed Gein had some good ideas. I don't even know what that meant. I just wanted to say something fucked up.
I don't know, but it was disturbing and unpleasant. Yeah, I like that. I mean, there's all these elements of this movie that like they don't really go like so into, because it doesn't feel like a modern look at the 70s. You know what I mean? It feels like a movie made during the 70s. Because like they kind of have this like psychological element to it, but they're like, yeah, I mean that could be, but let's focus on this instead. Because the whole thing about like, well, he's really more after the women. That's just kind of like after the fact. Whereas I think like now, it feels like that would be more like a big plot element to it.
Yeah, and also I don't even know if I buy that. Like, especially the first murder. Like, he made a really good attempt at killing that kid in the backseat.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't like, oh no, I focused on the woman. No, that dude just got lucky.
Yeah. Well, but that's also it too, is that because you can't really know. It's like, was it just that, or was it because it happens enough times that is it a pattern, or is it just and then he's breaking the pattern that he set up. He's a
talk about
guy.
that guy actor. That kid in the beginning when he shows up at the end as an adult is that guy from Westworld. He's been in fucking everything.
Jimmy Simpson, I believe his name is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Boy, that is like one of the ultimate that guys.
Which is funny, because I was thinking about this in relation to Under the Silver Lake, and he's in both those movies. So when he showed up at the end, I was like, oh, that's right. Yeah. What a funny. But I always love seeing that guy.
The other thing about this movie too, about the time and how like almost quaint it is, when Robert Downey Jr. at one point gets sent a piece of bloody cloth in the mail, and he's like, oh my god, freaking the fuck out. With what we've been through in the world, you and I, in the lives we've led, I don't think we would fucking blink if we got sent that.
I don't know. I think if someone sent me like a personal threat with some bloody items, I don't know. I think it would still get me. No, but I understand what you're saying. That like,
yeah, I'm saying in the immediate freak out. Like, I think there's a lot more like, man, I've been through too much. Like, I'll be worried about it. But like, I got like 3 economic collapses, a 9/11, a COVID under my belt. Like, you can't. Yeah. Oh no. I mean,
all you've just given me is like a promissory note that there's an end to all this. That's all you've given me right now.
I think my first thought is like, oh, I hope you didn't cough on this first.
Yeah, I better lick it to make sure.
Yeah.
It is sort of and kind of talk about that the Weird Little Guys podcast. It's like, how much of this could have been avoided if he just like had a forum he could post in? Like, how would that have been okay for him? That he would just get online and be like, oh, damn, these awful people. But I don't know that he could get slaves for the afterlife that way.
Yeah, the QAnon of it all. I just can't help but, I just can't help but imagine like this stuff now. Like, he's basically just an incel, to use the modern term. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, that's also on the opposite end. That's sort of what's even scarier about it is that, Zodiac now, you could probably get online and find a group of people that are like, no, absolutely, you're right. That there's weirdos that are there to just bolster other weirdos, whether they're being facetious about it or not. Like, there's a lot of crummy people out there. But I do like that you do get a sense of Arthur Lee Allen and his, like the obvious, like he's a pedophile. He's been fired from jobs. He's all this stuff, but it's all this stuff that's still like, that's all bad, but you can't get the firm grasp that he is absolutely 100% the guy. Yeah. It's all pointing to him, but they keep like undercutting with like that. But this, not so sure.
Yeah, I mean, the more interesting thing, and who knows how reliable of a narrator is, but when Greystoke said, I know I said it wrong, said that he didn't receive a single call after Lee had died.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that's true, that seems pretty, because that Lee seems like the kind of fella that's got some stick-to-itiveness. Like, he's going to call on heavy breathe for a while.
But it's also like, there's a certain amount of like, we've already seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people talk to, or if not hundreds, maybe more something like that, but just call up Toschi and be like, yeah, I'm the Zodiac killer. I don't know. I killed him with a hammer, I guess. It also just could be that Arthur Lee Allen is a piece of shit and is like, I know I'm not the Zodiac. I'm just going to fuck with this guy because it's fun for me. Because now he's got everyone thinking I'm the Zodiac. I don't know. But I think it can be confirmed that Arthur Lee Allen is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Whether he's also the Zodiac, I don't know. But I do like that the movie comes down on it in a way that is still questionable. The movie seems pretty convinced it's Arthur Lee Allen, but it's still like, I think this is my best guess. Shot in the dark. It's Arthur Lee Allen.
Yeah, and I think it's an important point. You already said it, but like that, it doesn't matter in context of the movie. Like, this movie isn't about the Zodiac killer. This movie is about the people reacting to the Zodiac killers. One of the scenes I really wanted to touch on. Not that I have much to say about it, I just think it's really brilliant, and you don't get it a lot of movies, is we get, X number of years later, there's a lot of time jumps in this, where we see Robert Downey Jr. on his houseboat, and he's a fucking mess.
Yes.
And you don't see that a lot in movies. Most of the time, when you see somebody on the downside, like especially a character that you kind of like, he's going to recover. Like, that's kind of built into movies. And this is just, no, you just watch this guy, like, he was in rough shape. He got in rougher shape. He got obsessed with something, and he just went on the slide, and that's it. Like, he just eventually died of emphysema.
Yeah. And that, like, the movie, I think, does a really good job of playing with the format in that way that it seems like this is the scene. Okay, oh man, he's on the down and outs, but you're with Robert, and Robert is totally like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to show him this information. And that's going to get my boy Paul back up and going. And then I'll have a partner in this, whatever. And Paul Avery's like, fuck you, get out of here.
Yeah.
And like that, all that momentum is stopped. And same thing towards the end too, where he's like, oh, I've got all these new revelations. It might be this other guy. And then all that is stopped. Like the ebb and flow of the investigation and how that plays out.
Yeah.
Within the movie and how the movie treats it, I think is fascinating.
Yeah, the Robert Downey Jr. part where it's like, I don't have the fucking files anymore. I don't know. I threw it in the water. I have no fucking idea. I live on a boat, which was my favorite line of the film, probably.
And then when he's still at the bar at the end and like he's got the oxygen mask like off to the side, it's like, God, you are just fucked.
I saw a guy back when you could smoke in the hotel, the airport lounge. I saw a guy with one of the full air oxygen containers on the wheel, on the dolly cart, smoking cigarettes with the fucking oxygen containers.
Oh my God.
Oof. Now keep in mind, I was in the lounge smoking cigarettes at the time, and I didn't put it out.
You're such an idiot. Yeah.
Good thing that can't happen to me. I'm the lead character in this story, so I'm safe. The other thing I like is with Grey's Anatomy is that you don't get the story of like he's on his like third marriage or whatever, and like you don't actually find out anything about it. Just like, yeah, I've been married a couple times, and like he's just like he seems like he's a handsome guy. He seems nice, like, but I guess he just got upset. He probably just got obsessed with like Sudoku or whatever.
He's this obsessive guy, and he keeps it in check, but then that balance goes way off. Which I really like the scene. Honestly, the scene with him and his kids. when he's like getting his kids in on it.
Yeah.
That feels very Steven Spielberg to me. Like, it just feels something like Close Encounters of the Third Kind sort of deal.
It's like the non-wholesome version, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, Close Encounters is not 100% wholesome in that regard, but yeah, I mean, he's using his children to help find a serial killer. And after his wife has said, "Don't do that." But
I actually just rewatched that movie pretty recently, Close Encounters.
Yeah.
And I just, every time, I know we did it on the, but just every time it's just like, oh yeah, what I'm going to do is get obsessed with the aliens, run away, make out with some chick, and then just leave my family forever. It's like, what the fuck?
But I mean, in a sense that works with this movie as well. Like, you know, it's like that obsession that just makes you go, none of this. I'm done making good decisions anymore.
Yeah.
And I like that. I just like the way that the obsession affects these different people, and the people that can stop themselves and the people that can't.
The other kind of that I like the build of it, even though it's like towards the end, which I said, you know, kind of whatever, how the movie gets more confusing, where it's like, all right, no, so I need to get in touch with Wallace Penny, but no, first it's Rick Marshall. So Rick Marshall is going to talk to Robert Penny, and then I have to go to Vallejo, and then I have to, and it's just like this really like, and you see like he starts like falling apart, and I really like the kind of pace of that, how it's like, I don't know if you're meant to follow it, but I certainly didn't follow it. I mean, I followed what was happening, but not what was happening.
But I think that's definitely part of it, because it gets kind of more baroque and crazy as you do these get further down that rabbit hole.
Oh, and during that scene, I really like where he's talking to Chloe Sevigny, and she says, you know, it's here's the thing. This never was a thing. This has just always been the first date.
Yeah.
Like that. On the first date, this revelation happened, RDJ was in trouble, and she just got swept up with it and kept going with it, and whatever the hell's in her personality that let it happen for that long, for years and children, and her just saying, no, the date never ended. It's like, oh, that's fucking good. That's some good writing right there.
Yeah. Yeah, she's really good. I mean, she has a very small part, but she's very good in it.
That's another thing, too, that I really like about this, and it's just mostly because we watch a lot of garbage.
Uh-huh.
Like good writing, especially good dialogue. It's like, it's a cold compress. It's taking magnesium when you've been drinking too much. It's just like, you said smart things, and not everybody's a genius, not everybody's quippy, but everybody's a human. Like, this is so good.
Yeah. Like I know you have mixed feelings on the guy, but like I've been reading for the first time. I've never actually read it. Stephen King's Christine.
Yeah.
And there's a part where he goes to, the main character, Dennis, goes to the guy that sold the car's brother, and the brother like gives him the lowdown about how evil it was. And I loved reading that guy telling this story. It was this kind of down homey sort of way. And then I started thinking about like, I wonder how they handle this in the John Carpenter version of the movie. And then I thought about Mike Flanagan, and like, he'd just shoot him talking, and I would hate it.
Just to give a speech. Just on the Stephen King note, I like Stephen King. I just realized that he uses the N-word in every single fucking book. It's every book. Because I went on like an audiobook binge with him, and I realized that he also is not great at finishing his books. But like for the most part, I enjoy Stephen King. But like when I came to the N-word realization, and it just kept happening, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't read Stephen King anymore.
Yeah, I fully agree with you about he has a very, very hard time ending books. Although I still recommend Revival. That book, it's one of its more recent ones. It's good.
Another one.
Yeah, check that one out, and it's grim, but I really enjoyed it. But yes, back to what you were saying about
the revival of the N-word in modern culture.
Yes. But that there's some really great turns of phrases here. And again, just like the way the characters interact with each other, and just how I'm trying to think, Robert Downey Jr. has this great little, like when they're talking, like when after Paul Avery screws them and they're on the plane, and the guy from Justice is like, how come I'm reading about your cracks in the case in the San Francisco Chronicle, and then like Robert Downey Jr. like rolls up, it's like, hey, can I get a ride over to this place?
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to the same place. He won't give me a ride. And I think the performance is a huge part of that too, but I just really just underscored what a piece of shit character that Paul Avery is.
You know who's good too is I think it was Lee's brother, the guy that looks like David Hyde Pierce.
Yes. Yeah.
He brought a weird energy to it that you're like, not sure if you believe him. Like, it seems like he thinks he's telling the truth, but you're like, is this sus?
Are you,
like,
are you talking about the guy that told the story about like working with him, or just his actual brother?
I think it's his actual brother.
Okay.
He looks like David Hyde Pierce.
There were a couple of guys that look like David Hyde Pierce.
Ah, shit.
Yeah.
They talked to him a bunch of times. One time they're in like a computer lab kind of setting.
Okay,
like,
that's the guy he worked with.
Oh, that's the guy he worked with. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely like, because like even the guy who gets stabbed at the lake kind of has a David Hyde Pierce thing, although he's a little bit more Stephen Merchant, I guess.
Yeah.
But yes, no, yeah, absolutely, because there's a certain amount of, because I think the movie also kind of preps you to be like, is this anything? Is this guy full of shit?
Yeah, and there's a lot of that, like at the end where like he's just following random shit, and you don't know what's true anymore. You don't know what's worth following up on. One of the when they talk to Sophie from Carnival in the prison, which is always nice to see her.
Yes, yeah. Why am I blanking on her name?
It's Claudie, something with a C.
Duval.
Yeah, something like that. She's got a good performance, but like her trying to remember who Lee was, where you're just like, is this bullshit too, or is this like half a memory? Is this an awkward writing in the movie? But like, I think it works. Where it's like, I don't really know. I've got no solid ground right now, purposefully.
Right. Yeah. And so like when you hear something that like, oh, that could be right, you just glom onto it. Yeah, I'd forgotten that she was like, yeah, there's so many just like that guy actors that are in this that are just fantastic.
The kind of end scene. Well, so like I can't think of any other dumb ways to say Grey's Anatomy. He says, I just want to look at him in the eye and know whether or not it's him. That's like established. So we go to 1983 and he goes to an Ace Hardware store to see Lee working there. There's a really weird thing in here, and I know my brain doesn't work very well, and this is not the thing to focus on. But dead center frame in that when he walks up to Lee is a calendar saying 1980. Outside, it says wherever the fuck they are, 1983. I rewound it. He talks to Lee, and in front of Lee on the post, there's a calendar that says 1980. And maybe this is the QAnon or whatever, and be like, what does that mean? Why is that there? Like, I could get like maybe 1982, but like it's 3 years ago, and it's a bustling store. There's other customers there. Yeah. It's not like this is some shit house that no one's upkeeping. There's not going to be a 3-year-old fucking calendar.
Yeah, that's funny. That's totally something that in my line of work, like that someone would be like, well, technically it's not even, can we like rotoscope that out and replace the two? And with David Fincher being the I don't want to say control freak, but attention to detail that David Fincher has, that's kind of surprising.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I wanted to ask you about this. So this is something that you would probably be tasked with as a special effects guy. Do you know that they digitally added hair to Jake Gyllenhaal's knuckles in any close-up of his hands because David Fincher thought his hands were too hairless?
That's a real thing you're telling me?
That's a real... Well, that's a thing from IMDb trivia. Whether or not that's true, that's a thing I read on IMDb trivia. Yeah. And it sounds very much like something David Lynch would do. I mean, that's your job.
I've heard apocryphal stories about him doing that. Of like, there was a story about, because he and Steven Soderbergh are buddy, that Soderbergh was like in on an edit with him, like just dropped by, and he had like a laser pointer and was like, we need to do something with this and blah blah blah. And the Soderbergh was like, I can't deal with this. Like, I don't like how you work is just insane to me. But then it's also like there's some commentary track, I think on Gone Girl, where he's like, I get a lot of shit for the amount of takes I do. Here's this take of like this car pulling up. We did that in one take, so shut the fuck up. So,
yeah,
I don't know, but people get weird about that kind of stuff, about like what they want to focus on. Obviously, it's the Zodiac, but that is I've never even thought of that. But like that's kind of the point, is that you can miss the forest for the trees on some of this. Yeah, that's the way that saying goes.
Also, my brain is broken. That's true. Let's not get past that. So yeah, the movie ends with Jimmy Simpson getting pulled into a weird conference room at an airport and seeing a lineup of people, and it's like, that's the guy that shot me. He picks out Lee from the lineup, which is it's an interesting scene if we're meant to not be sure whether or not Lee is the killer.
Yeah. Well, I also like because it's James LaGrosse is the guy questioning him, and he was just a cop at Vallejo. Like, there's one scene earlier where he's like, oh, like Jake Gyllenhaal walks by, and he's like, who's that guy? He's like, he's going to solve the Zodiac murder. Oh, good for him. And then later he's been promoted. They just,
Oh, I don't think I picked up on that.
Yeah. Well, I just know he's in Phantasm 2.
Yeah, of course. How did I forget?
Yeah, but he so he's questioning them. And yeah, that at the end he's like, oh, it was this guy, but he kind of had a rounder face like this guy. And he's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how sure are you? He was like, an 8. This was definitely the guy that did it. Like that, all those kind of like mixed, because it's how I would describe it. Because I'd still be cagey about it. Like, I don't. Yeah, I think it was the guy that shot me, but I don't want to say anything that you could hold against me later. So
there's another. I mean, this is not built in. Maybe it's in real life, but like when you see his name written down, it's Leigh. But at the hardware store, it's Lee. Which to me puts in doubt that Linda's story, that a guy named Lee, like it puts in the mind that there's 2 different ways to be Lee, and this guy that we're referencing is Leigh, middle name Lee.
Right.
Like it's a small thing, but it just kind of like you're putting together a piece of like it's a homophone piece that you're like, well, that's really leads me down this way, where it's like, no, this is the memory of a painting party from 1,000,000 years ago with a name that's not spelled, and that's this guy's middle name that he goes by. It's when you look at it, you see how like stretched the string is.
Right. Yeah. Is that like, does he just go by that, and so that's easier because otherwise it'd be Lay, and then he's doesn't want to it's too feminine or something, you know what I mean? Like there's all these just different threads you could pull at for nothing, for a name tag, Yeah.
I mean, it's probably just Lee, but I mean, just in my head, I was just thinking like the amount of like the way that that Gyllenhaal puts the pieces together, at least as shown in the movie. I guess that's, people are questioning the book. Like if that's the kind of logic that's being used, that is questionable. Like that's not good police work. I mean, it's not a police. He fucking drew Garfield. Do you know, by the way, that's the guy that drew Garfield. I don't know. That's also an IMDb trivia. Yeah.
What? Robert Graysmith.
Jake Gyllenhaal is, but Robert Graysmith is.
Robert Graysmith is Jim Davis.
Is Jim Davis?
The Zodiac Killer.
Well, that's why he always looks tired. He's got like a whole. It's like a Tyler Durden thing. At night, he bitches about lasagna.
Yeah. Well, he does specifically in the movie. He's like, oh, Mondays, I hate them.
Yeah, that was a someone.
I wish someone else hated Mondays the way that I do.
Mark Ruffalo's middle name was Odie.
Yeah, Odie Tusk.
Yeah. Hey, Sergeant Nermal, get over here. Hey, Sergeant Nermal's over in Abu Dhabi.
Speaking of that guy, actors, that's what I think the editor for the big muck at the San Francisco Chronicle, it's Jack's dad from Lost. One thing I know him from.
I knew that guy looked familiar. I couldn't. Yeah. I took no time to place it, but I'm like, that guy's got a face.
Which is what this movie came out in 2007, the same year that There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men came out. Like that was a banger year for movies, and I'd forgotten that this came out that same time.
Oh yeah. Actually, now that you say that, I do kind of remember that like being like a weird highlight year.
Yeah.
I don't really have much else on the movie other than it's kind of great.
It's amazing. It might be my favorite David Fincher movie, and like I've already watched it a whole bunch of times, and like been reading, and I want to know more about it. Kind of the same thing. Like I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of it, but it's fascinating to learn about.
Yeah, you should probably like get really obsessed with the Zodiac. Like,
yeah, I'm just more interested in the movie, rather than who did it, because it's like part of it's like a procedural kind of all the President's Men kind of journalistic sort of thing, and then it spirals out of control in this other way, and I dig it. Which coming out off of Rebel Moon, it was like, oh yeah, movies can be good.
I don't know whether I did it right or not, but I watched Rebel Moon Part 2 first. And then this, and like that made this taste so much sweeter.
Yeah.
But the other way around is like, would that have made Rebel Moon worse if the last thing I watched was like a banger, like a really good movie?
Yeah.
If like I'm leading into that of like the last thing I watched was Zodiac, and then I have to sit through fucking The Chalice of Blood or whatever the fuck that was called.
Right. Well, it's like you're someone that knows how to tell time in movies or deal with time in movies to 9 hours of wheat. Knows how to deal with time in movies. Hey, 1983/1980 call. Like to dispute you on that one, asshole.
All
about watches, not about calendars.
Have you seen anything recently that you would like to recommend to the audience?
Actually, yes. So I just rewatched Alien 3 for the first time in probably 20 years, if not more so, and I really liked it. I think it's great. It's not perfect, but I really enjoyed it. And then I also fell in love with the Equalizer series with
Really?
With Denzel Washington. The first one is great. It's such, and I'm not the first person to say this, but it is absolutely dad porn. Like it is, it's not just that he's an old guy who just kicks young people's asses. It's that there's whole threads of the movie where it's like, what if people actually wanted to hear my advice and listen to me? It just seems like it's just catnip for dads that are just shut out by their teenagers. And then I watched the second one last night, and the second one kind of forgets what made the first one so good, because it's a lot more like, it leans heavier into his secret past, and like, so he's back doing like international crime stuff.
Oh, you're talking about, I just realized you're talking about the movies.
Yeah. Not the TV show.
Yeah.
But which they redid with Queen Latifah, I guess.
Is that true?
Yeah. But I haven't watched the third one yet, but I might actually check that out tonight. But they're just dumb, and that's kind of what I've been in the mood for.
Alien 3 was the one that I wanted to watch and got confused.
Right.
If you recall.
When we did, that one. Because I still haven't seen Romulus. I still want to kind of go check that. I've heard mixed things, but I'm like, I just want it to be fun. That's all I kind of care about.
I just recently rewatched The Good Place, and that show's great.
Yeah.
The ending is kind of perfect, and recommend it wholeheartedly. Really liked it. Here's an anti-recommendation because I like hating things. I really like the Interview with the Vampire, the new TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And it is set in the same universe as another show called, or at least there's a through line to another show called The Mayfair Witches, starring Alexandria Daddario.
From Texas Chainsaw 3.
And that show is fucking terrible.
Yeah.
It's like, it's dog shit. I'm somewhere between, like, I'm not going to watch many more, but like, I'm fascinated by how bad it, like,
yeah.
It's bad in like a unique way where it's like, it's not a badly made show, but it's also bad. Like, it's also a badly made show. Like, I don't even know how to, like, it's like confusing in its badness. And I'm kind of fascinated by it. So The Mayfair Witches, kind of ass.
Right. But like, someone watch it and explain it to you is basically.
Yeah. Like, because people watch it and like, it's kind of baffling. The villain is like, has no charisma, and I think he's supposed to be like a really charismatic guy. I think that's the way it's written, but like, the actor isn't.
This is honestly, like, it's a different thing, but this is kind of how I felt about Westworld, where it's like, this isn't a badly, well, maybe not. Well, it's just like elements about like, this isn't a badly made show. Like, there's thought and stuff that went into this, but it's also terrible. What's happening here?
I mean, I really like Westworld season 1. We're going to disagree on that. It goes off a cliff after that, but
I cannot believe
good.
There was more, and
I guess
even dumber.
I never watched the last one where like, I don't know, fucking, I think like Eminem stars in it or something. It's Jesse Pinkman. Yeah. It was like some like, why the fuck are you in this guy shows up? I think I watched like 2 episodes of that. I'm like, what am I doing? I mean, not even like I have much else to do with my life, but like, I got other things to do with my life.
No, and that's what's galling, like watching Rebel Moon, is you're like, I've got nothing going on, but like, I would rather just be miserable. I'd rather just stare at a wall feeling bad about myself than watch this.
For next episode of John and Alex Hate Stuff, the podcast, the movie, the ride, what would you like to watch?
I would like to watch something bird related.
Nathan Lane?
No, I don't want birds to be trapped. I'd like them to be maybe like have a relationship with a child, maybe like a boy.
Oh, Jurassic Park 3, where the guy's kid gets stuck in the, well, those are like pterosaurs, so they're not really birds. Hey, you know what looks like a pterosaur? A heron.
Oh, I knew someone that was addicted to heron.
Hayao Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron, coming to HBO Max Plus, Streaming Plus Max Streaming Box on Friday.
Come for the
6th.
reviews. Stay for the perfect improv.
Come on, Hayao right there was kind of good.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not against your Hayao. That's not the problem.
Oh, all right, perfect. Appreciate that. Yeah, so the Boy and the Heron, the new Miyazaki movie. I don't know anything about it except there's a boy, there's a heron. It's a new Miyazaki. Miyazaki's great. I've heard good things. Robert Pattinson's in it. John's favorite.
Yeah, I do like him.
We will see y'all next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.